In the olden time, there was a king who owned a beautiful pleasure garden behind his grand palace. In this garden, there grew a special tree that bore golden apples. As the apples ripened, the king's servants would count them, but each morning, one apple would be missing. This was told to the king, and he ordered that a watch should be kept every night beneath the tree. The king had 3 sons, and he asked the eldest to guard the tree on the first night. However, as the clock struck midnight, he could not keep himself from sleeping. And next morning again, an apple was gone. On the next night, the king's second son was assigned to guard the tree. Just like his elder brother, he couldn't stay awake and fell asleep as soon as it struck 12 o'clock. And as expected, the next morning, yet another apple was missing. Now it was the turn of the king's third son to keep watch over the tree. Although the king didn't have much confidence in him, thinking he might be less capable than his brothers. But at last, he let him go. The young man lay down beneath the tree, determined to stay awake and not let sleep overcome him. When the clock struck midnight, he heard a rustling sound in the air. In the moonlight, he saw a bird coming, its feathers shining with gold. The bird landed on the tree and was about to pluck an apple when the young man shot an arrow at it. The bird flew away, but the arrow had grazed its feathers, and one of its golden feathers fell to the ground. The young man picked up the golden feather, and the next morning he brought it to the king and told him about the bird he had seen during the night. The king called his council together, and everyone agreed that a feather like that was worth more than the entire kingdom.
"If this feather is so valuable,"
declared the king,
"one alone is not enough for me. I must and will have the whole bird."
The eldest son set out, trusting in his cleverness and believing he would easily find the golden bird. After traveling for a while, he spotted a fox sitting at the edge of a wood, so he cocked his gun and aimed at the fox. But the fox cried out, "Do not shoot me, and in return I will give you some good advice. You are on the way to the golden bird. This evening you'll reach a village in which stand 2 inns opposite to one another. One of them is lighted up brightly, and all goes on merrily within, but do not enter it. Instead, go to the other inn, even if it seems less appealing." The king's son thought,
"How can a silly beast give wise advice?"
and he pulled the trigger. But he missed the fox, who stretched out his tail and ran quickly into the wood. The king's son continued his journey and reached the village with the 2 inns by evening. In one inn there was singing and dancing, while the other had a poor and miserable appearance.
"I would be a fool,"
he thought,
"to go into the shabby inn and pass by the good one."
So he entered the cheerful inn, indulged in wild parties and revelry, and completely forgot about the golden bird, his father, and all the good advice he had received. After some time had passed, and the eldest son did not return home for months, the second son decided to set out in search of the golden bird. Just like his brother, he encountered the fox, who gave him the same wise advice, but he paid no attention to it. When he reached the village with the 2 inns, he saw his brother standing at the window of the one filled with music and merriment. Unable to resist the temptation, he entered the inn and indulged in a life of pleasure and enjoyment, forgetting all about the search for the golden bird. After some more time passed, the youngest king's son expressed his desire to set off and try his luck in finding the golden bird. However, his father was reluctant and doubted his abilities, thinking he would be less likely to succeed compared to his brothers. He worried that if any misfortune were to befall him, he wouldn't know how to handle it. His father believed him to be lacking in some ways, but eventually, due to his persistent pleading, he allowed him to go. Once again, the fox appeared outside the wood and pleaded for his life while offering his valuable advice. The kind-hearted young man decided not to harm the fox and said,
"Don't worry, little fox, I won't hurt you."
"You won't regret it," replied the fox, "and to help you travel faster, hop on my tail." Without hesitation, the young man seated himself on the fox's tail, and off they went running swiftly over all obstacles. Their journey was so fast that the wind whistled through their hair. Upon reaching the village, the young man got off. He followed the good advice and, without looking round, turned into the little inn, where he spent the night quietly. The next morning, as soon as he reached the open country, the fox was already waiting there. He said, "Let me guide you further on your journey. Just go straight ahead. Eventually you will reach a castle guarded by a whole regiment of soldiers. But don't worry about them, as they will all be fast asleep, snoring away. Walk right through them and enter the castle. Explore all the rooms until you find a chamber where a golden bird is kept in a wooden cage. Close by, there will be another empty gold cage for display. Be careful not to transfer the bird from its ordinary cage into the fancy one, or it may lead to trouble for you." With those words, the fox once again extended his tail, and the king's son sat upon it. Off they went, speeding over obstacles and rough terrain, the wind whistling through their hair. Upon reaching the castle, everything was just as the fox had described. The king's son entered the chamber where the golden bird was confined in a wooden cage while a golden one was placed nearby. The 3 golden apples were scattered about the room.
But,
he thought,
it wouldn't be right to leave this magnificent bird in such an ordinary and unsightly cage.
So he opened the door, carefully took hold of the bird, and placed it inside the golden cage. However, the moment he did so, the bird let out a piercing cry. The soldiers woke up, hurried inside, and took him off to prison. The following morning, he was brought before a court of justice, and upon confessing his actions, he was sentenced to death. The king, however, said that he would grant him his life on one condition, if he brought him the golden horse which ran faster than the wind. In return, he would also be rewarded with the golden bird. The king's son set off, feeling sad and anxious about finding the golden horse. Suddenly, he spotted his old friend, the fox, sitting on the road. "See," said the fox, "this happened because you didn't listen to me, but don't lose heart. I will assist you and guide you to the golden horse. Just keep going straight ahead, and you will reach a castle where the horse is kept in the stable. The stable grooms will be lying in front of it. They will be fast asleep and snoring, and you can quietly lead out the golden horse. But there's one important thing to remember. Put on the horse the ordinary saddle made of wood and leather, not the golden one that hangs nearby. If you use the golden saddle, things may not end well for you." Then the fox stretched out his tail, and the king's son seated himself upon it. Away they went, over stock and stone, until the wind whistled through their hair. Everything happened just as the fox had said. The king's son arrived at the stable where the magnificent golden horse stood. However, as he was about to put the common saddle on the horse, he hesitated, thinking,
It would be a shame for such a beautiful beast not to have the fine saddle, good saddle, which belongs to him by right.
But as soon as the golden saddle touched the horse, it began to neigh loudly, waking up the grooms. They quickly captured the young man and threw him into prison. The following morning, he was sentenced to death. However, the king offered him a chance to save his life and gain the golden horse if he could rescue the beautiful princess from the golden castle. With a heavy heart, the young man set out. Fortunately, he soon encountered the faithful fox once again. "I should leave you to your misfortune," said the fox, "but I feel pity for you and will help you once more. Follow this road, and it will lead you straight to the golden castle. You'll arrive there by evening. At night, when all is quiet, the beautiful princess will go to the bathing house to bathe. When she enters, approach her and give her a kiss. Then she will follow you, and you can take her away. But remember, do not let her say farewell to her parents, or it will bring trouble upon you." The fox stretched out his tail, and the king's son seated himself upon it. They rushed away, over rocks and through the forest, until his hair whistled in the wind. When they arrived at the golden castle, everything was just as the fox had described. At midnight, when everything lay in deep sleep, the beautiful princess went to the bathing house. The king's son sprang out and kissed her. She expressed her desire to go with him, but with tears in her eyes, she pleaded to be allowed to bid farewell to her parents. At first, the king resisted the maiden's heartfelt plea, but as she wept more and more and fell at his feet, his heart softened, and he finally gave in. However, as soon as the maiden reached her father's bedside, he and everyone else in the castle woke up from their sleep, and the young man was captured and thrown into the prison. The following morning, the king spoke to him sternly, saying,
"Your life is in danger, and the only way to earn mercy is by removing the hill that stands in front of my windows, obstructing my view beyond it. You have just 8 days to complete this task. If you succeed, you shall have my daughter as your reward."
The king's son started digging and shoveling without taking any breaks. But after 7 days, when he saw how little he had done and how all his work was as good as nothing, he fell into great sorrow and gave up all hope. On the evening of the 7th day, the fox appeared and said, "You do not deserve that I should take any trouble about you. Nevertheless, go away and lie down to sleep. I will do the work for you." The next morning, when he woke up and looked out of the window, the hill was gone. Full of joy, he ran to the king and told him that the task was fulfilled. True to his word, the king had no choice but to give him his daughter as promised. Thus the two of them set off on their journey together, and it didn't take long before the faithful fox caught up with them. "You have certainly achieved something remarkable," said the fox. "But remember, the golden horse also belongs to the maiden of the golden castle."
"How can I get it?"
asked the young man. "I will tell you," replied the fox. "First, take the beautiful maiden to the king who sent you to the golden castle. There will be an unprecedented celebration, and they will gladly give you the golden horse, bringing it out for you." Everything went according to plan, and the king's son rode off with the beautiful princess on the golden horse. The fox did not stay behind and said to the young man, "Now I will help you get the golden bird. When you approach the castle where the golden bird resides, have the maiden alight from the horse, and I will take care of her. Then ride with the golden horse into the castle courtyard. There will be great rejoicing at the sight, and they will bring out the golden bird for you." With the fox's guidance, the king's son successfully got the golden bird. As he prepared to return home with his precious treasures, the fox asked for his reward.
"What do you desire in return?"
inquired the young man. "When you enter the woods over there, shoot me dead and chop off my head and feet," said the fox.
"That's a terrible thing to ask for,"
protested the king's son.
"I cannot possibly do that to you after all your help."
The fox replied, "If you won't fulfill my request, then I must bid you farewell. But before I go, let me offer you some valuable advice. Beware of two things: never buy gallows flesh, and avoid sitting at the edge of any well." And with that, the fox ran off into the woods. The young man thought,
"What a peculiar creature with strange requests. Who would even think of buying gallows flesh? And I have never had the desire to sit at the edge of a well."
He continued his journey with the beautiful maiden, and their path led them back through the village where his two brothers had stayed. There was a great stir and noise, and when he inquired about the cause, he was told that two men were going to be hanged. To his dismay, he discovered that the two men were his brothers, who had engaged in wicked deeds and wasted all their wealth. He asked if there was any way to set them free. The people replied, "If you pay for their freedom, they can be released. But why waste your money on wicked men?" Without hesitation, he paid for their release, and they all continued their journey together. As they reached the familiar wood where they had first met the fox, the two brothers suggested resting by the well to eat and drink. Unaware of the danger, the youngest brother sat on the well's edge. Seizing the opportunity, the two brothers pushed him into the well and took the maiden, the golden horse, and the golden bird, and went home to their father. Excitement filled their home as the two brothers proudly presented the treasures they had won. However, the horse wouldn't eat, the bird wouldn't sing, and the maiden wept in sorrow. But the youngest brother was not dead. Luckily, the well was dry, and he landed safely on soft moss without harm. Yet he couldn't climb out. The faithful fox didn't abandon him, leaping down to offer support and scolding him for forgetting the advice. The fox assured him he wouldn't give up and pulled him back up into the daylight, warning him that his brothers had surrounded the wood with watchers to kill him if he were seen. To escape their watchful eyes, he exchanged clothes with a poor man he encountered along the road, managing to reach the king's palace in disguise. Though no one recognized him, the golden birds singing, the golden horses eating, and the maiden's joyful behavior caught the king's attention. The maiden told him all that had happened, although the other brothers had threatened her with death if she revealed anything. Upon the king's command, all the people in the castle were summoned, and the young man appeared before him dressed in ragged clothes. However, the beautiful maiden recognized him instantly and rushed into his arms. The wicked brothers were captured and put to death, while the young man married the maiden and was declared the king's heir. As for the poor fox, a long time later the king's son found himself walking in the woods once again when he encountered the fox. The fox spoke, "You have everything you could wish for now, but my misery never ends, and only you can free me." With tears in his eyes, the fox pleaded the young man to shoot him and chop off his head and feet. Moved by compassion, the young man granted the fox's request. As soon as it was done, the fox transformed into a man, revealing himself to be the beautiful princess's brother, finally freed from the enchantment that had imprisoned him. And now, nothing else was needed to ensure their happiness for the rest of their lives.